Stapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmaswarupini avataravadishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha Sudhismritipurananam alayam karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram. So we are going to discuss a summarization, a summary of the Bhatta school of Mimamsa. It also includes Prabhakara's views also. Only Prabhakara uses the word Niyoga very often in that sense as well. And how in the subsequent Bhashya, the Bhashyakara takes up each point and refutes it. Now, one fundamental premise to keep in mind is that the Mimamsakas define Vedas as a book of dharma. Dharma means kriya, chodana lakshano dharma. So, the central theme of the whole Vedic literature, including Upanishads, for them is kriya. And according to them, there is no such thing as Brahman or Jiva Brahmaikya. For them, you perform rituals, then you produce adrishta, and you get more and more punya, and that will one day take you a higher level of existence, where you perpetually enjoy the good things, punya phalas. This is their view. So I shall give a few examples of how they interpret different vakyas in the tradition. So, to one example, there is one kriyaviti. So it is Vayavyam, Svedam, Alabheda, Bhudikama. Now this naturally contains a kriya. That means, see, Vayavyam, Svedam, Alabheda, Bhudikama. Bhudikama means somebody who wants prosperity, enjoyment, material prosperity. So such a person should Vayavyam, Svedam, Alabheda. So Sveda here means white goat. The white goat should be sacrificed to this Vayu Devata. The Vedic deity Vayu, you know, Indram, Mitram, Varunam, Agni, Dyava, Prithivi, Soma, Paumana, so many deities you find in the Samhita portion of Rigveda, which more or less are true with regard to other Vedas also, because many of the mantras in Samaveda, Yajurveda and Atharvaveda can be found in Samhita portion, Rigveda Samhita. So you can find this evolution of Godhead in Rigveda Samhita. On the one hand, and the first mandala itself, there is the idea of one supreme reality which can be called by different names. Indram, Mitram, Varunam, Agnirahu, Adho Divyasa Suparno Gurutman, Ekam Sadvipra Bhagudha Vadandi, Agni Yamamatriswaramahu. This is the first mandala itself, 164th Sukta. But then in the subsequent mandala, 10 mandalas, you find a number of rituals are mentioned, and number of deities are mentioned, Indra, Varuna, Agni, Dyava, Prithivi, and so on. So Vayu is one of them. So if anyone wants prosperity quickly, so that portion will be coming next. If anyone wants to become prosperous quickly, then Vayavyam, Svedam, Alabheda. This is Kriya, is Angi, main Mukhya Kriya. Now, along with that, there are also, of course this is not Rigveda, it comes in Taittiriya Samhita. Elsewhere you find similar, Kshepishtha Devata Vayumeva Svena Bhagadena Upadhavati Sa Evainam Bhudim Gamayati. Now the first statement contains a distinct kriya, chodana lakshana. Chodana is there. Vayavyam svedamala bheda, they say. If you want prosperity, bhuti, then you sacrifice a goat. In the next one, Vayurvai kshepistha devata. This is one statement. So Vayu is fast moving. It means that also is interpreted as quickly Vayu will be pleased when you perform a ritual. Vayu will be pleased. So Kshepistha devata means so it's arthavada, moving fast. Vayumeva svena bhagadena upadhavati sa evainam bhutim gamayati. So Vayu Kshipra devata. So you please Vayu. Now here there is no kriya included. So this has to find this to be meaningful. Otherwise Vedas will have anarthakya. So to make this statement meaningful, this should be interpreted as an anga of the main kriya, but they are not in the same place. Vayavyam svedam alabhede bhudikama. So a stuti arthavada is mentioned here. Kshepistha devata. That's why you sacrifice goat. Now when you read this, you will understand what a radical, revolutionary reformation that Shankara brought in by projecting his Advaita. Now, if you read the history of the ancient Mayans, Incans, and many of the ancient Latin American civilizations, Mayan, Incans, and even in Sumerian, Assyrian civilizations, Middle Eastern civilizations, the concept of sacrifice was there. But culturally it was totally different. So actually this will give you an idea of the great revolutionary change that Shankara brought in by projecting the Upanishads. Because without the Upanishads, if you go by the teachings of Jaimini, Shabara and Kumarla Bhatt and others, there are many striking similarities between the Vedic civilization and some of the South American, Latin American, Middle Eastern civilizations, Assyrians, Sumerians, Mayan, Incans, Aztecs. They all had sacrifices in their culture. And unfortunately, in some of the Latin American civilizations, they had even human sacrifice. So, but of course, Mimamsakas were very, very ascetic people. Very, very Spartan, very high level of morality, self-denial, austerity, lot of fasting, lot of the charity. They led very, very ascetic life, absolutely ascetic. In fact, they were the core of Vedic culture. Only they believed only in rituals. So just in contrast. But then the sacrifice, animal sacrifice is common in other civilizations here also. So many anthropologists try to make comparative studies, comparative anthropology between these ancient civilizations. So if you don't have Upanishads, then it can be considered some kind of a more refined, more ascetic, morally and ethically much more evolved kind of ritualistic civilization, Vedic culture. So that's why I'm giving this example. So the foundational principle for Mimamsakas was this, Chodana Lakshano Dharma. So any Vedic statement should have Chodana. Chodana should prompt you to do something. Shankaracharya says, no. There are statements in Vedanta Vakya Upanishads, which don't include any kind of injunction, Vedic injunction. So they do have a meaning. So I was trying to give an example. So you have missed, so I will repeat again. The Samhita portion is actually the foundational document of Vedic culture. Because the same Samhita portion, Rigveda Samhita especially, because many of the mantras in Samaveda, Atharvaveda and even Yajurveda can be found in Rigveda Samhita. Very often when you quote something which is found in all the four Vedas, you quote only Rigveda and again Samhita. And in the Samhita there are many deities. As I mentioned in the beginning of the first mandala itself, a number of deities are mentioned. Indram Mitram Varunam Aktirako Divyasa Suparno Gurutman Ekam Sad Vipra Bhagudha Vadandi Agni Mema Matarishwanamago. That Ekam Sad Vipra Bhagudha Vadandi is the first statement in the history of human civilization which is linked to Advaita. Ekam Sat. So Yadha Nadyas Sandamana Samudri Astam Gachati Namarupi Vikaya Tata Namarubad Vimukta Parat Param Purusham Vaidhi. It is Mundu Upanishad, but actually Rigveda Samhita mantra. So this is Samhita mantra which is found in Atharvavediya Mundu Upanishad. But these higher monistic ideas were there, but also there was a very highly evolved kind of polytheism in the Samhita literature. And one of the main deities, the most important deity was Indra, the Vishnu, Rudra and so on. Some of them later developed into modern pantheon of temple worship. But generally speaking, Indra, Mitra, Varuna, Vayu, Agni, Dyava, Prithivi, Source, Pavamana, Soma and so on. So here is one example how Mimamsakas try to justify their own principle that every statement in Veda should have a Kriya injunction, otherwise it is only Anuvadakam, alright you can do it, but not Pramanyam, it is not Pramanam. But then there are cases where they sometimes take one Vakya from one context and join it with another Vakya to make it meaningful. So a Vakya which contains Kriya will be Angi, the main Mukhya Vakya, Mukhya Kriya. And something which is only Anuvadakam, which just make a statement, will be Anga. An example is given, Vayavyam Svedam Alabheda Bhudikama. Bhudikamaha Vayavyam Svedam Alabheda. If you are a Bhudikama, if you want prosperity, wealth, then you should sacrifice a white goat to propitiate Vayu. That's the idea behind. It's a Kriya Vidhi. Now, again, they find very near, close by, they find another Vakya, which is again only an Arthavada. It is only a statement. I mentioned, Kshebishtha Devada Vayumeva Svena Bhagadena Upadhavati Sa Evainam Bhudim Gamayati. So, Vayu is Kshebishtha Devada, means it moves very fast. That fast moving quality is interpreted as Vayu who responds to your prayers fast, quickly. That's why, so if you want wealth quickly, what you should do, you should make this sacrifice of white goat to propitiate Vayu Devada. Now if you take just one statement, Kshebishtha Devada, etc., it has no meaning according to Mimamsa tradition. So that Arthavada is Stutya Arthavada. Kshebishtha Devada is Stutya, Studi, Prashasti. So that is linked to the main Kriya. That is Vayavyam, Svedam, Alabheda, etc. Bhudikama. The Kriya is there, Alabheda. So this is one example of Stutyarthavada. So based on this Egavakya, I mean putting together, what they do, they make the Arthavada statement, which otherwise is just a statement, It's just an information, Vayuvekshavishthadevada, that becomes meaningful because it is linked to a Kriyaviti. This is Tattwavada. Another one, Nindarthavada, an example. Here the main Kriyamaka is Barhishi Rajadam Nadeyam. Barhishi is Bahiryagam. Bahiryagi Yajne. Barhishi. Rajadam Nadeyam. So you should not make dakshina of silver to Ritviks. So it is Nishedhavidi, you should not do that. So they are looking for some justification for some other statements. They want to link it with this Kriyaviti. Saha arodid, yad arodid, tad rudrasya rudratvam. Actually, Saha arodid means he cried, he wept. No, you don't find any meaning here because it doesn't contain any chodana, any kriya, any injunction. So you have to connect it with something else. So what they do, they connect it to Barhishi Rajadam, that is Angi, main kriya. So this negative quality, that means Saha Arodi, he cried, there's no meaning. So what they do, the story goes like this, based on the Vedic mythology. It's found in some Brahmanas and other books you find. It's a story you find in Mahabharata also. Huge collection of stories. So there was a fight, the different versions. So all the Devatas went to defend their kingdom, Surga, or maybe for some other reason, maybe not war. And then they had plenty of silver in stock, which they entrusted with Rudra. Sorry, Agni Deva. He called Agni Deva, and Agni was asked to take care of, to protect the silver, huge stockpile of silver. So Agni agreed, Agni took care of the whole stock. And then they didn't come for some time, these Devatas, Indra, Varuna, etc. So he was looking at this silver and he became, he developed a great desire to possess the silver. So he took it and he fled. So after some time, other Devatas came and they punished this Agni Devata. So he cried. So his tears rolled down his eyes and those teardrops became silver. So that silver should not be used for giving dakshina. If a Ritvik accepts the silver as dakshina, there will be death in his family. Joldi Ratna Prabha and other commentators will extend this story further. So if you, like that, Rajadam Nadeyam, this Kriya, they found it very convenient to give justification to another statement, Saha Arodid, Yad Arodid, etc. This is the mechanism they employ to safeguard some of the statements which otherwise may not be very, very significant or relevant according to Mimamsa tradition itself. Just as giving an example. Now, I think that's enough. There are other examples. Just another one linked to the Yajna Yaga. So a mantra is a mantra. Ishetva. So Ishetva is a mantra. So the Yajamana or one of the Ritviks will hold a branch of a tree, piece of tree in his hand, and he may be cutting a tree. Palas tree, they say. What they do, then they should utter a mantra. So Ishetva. So Chindim should be brought in as an Adhyahara or Vakyasesha. So Ishetva Chindim. It is for the strength. So let me be as strong as this, the branch of this tree, like that. They also have these similar mantras they use, for example, while offering the tea, holding the tea in the for Yajna and Yaga, they make these more big spoons made of wood. Only wood can be used. Specific wood trees are used. So the tea, vrihi, all will be offered. So when you're looking at it, you should attend this mantra. So what it means is, this mantra actually means Ishitva, I am cutting you. So for that what they do, chintim, I am cutting. So the Ishitva itself doesn't have a kriya. The chintim makes it kriya. So this is the background. Now we are coming to Purvavaksha. The whole passage is a Purvavaksha, according to Bhatta, which will be refuted in the coming parts. Purvavaksha. Meanwhile, you have to keep in mind that according to Kumarila Bhatta, Vedanta statements are only Anuvataka, if at all, or they should be interpreted in connection with and one Kriya Vakya, either as Stutyathavada or in the Arthavada. According to Vrittigaras, who came much later, they often say, they should be interpreted as secondary vidhi. Pratipatti vidhi is called, secondary to utpatti vidhi. That will come later now. Purvavaksha. Katham punaha brahmanaha shastra pramanagatvam. So, how can your Brahman has any authenticity from the standpoint of Vedas? Shastram always here means Vedas. According to Mimamsakas, it could be Karmakanda. But remember, Mimamsakas don't make a distinction. They treat the entire thing as one whole. Their point is, Upanishad Vakyas or mantras, either they are Stutyathavada, Indarthavada, or Pratipatti Vidhi, or Upasana, that's all. So, according to the ancient tradition, Bodhayana and others, they wrote Vritti for the entire, for the both, that's the old Shavaras and all that. So, Katham Punaga Brahmanaga Shastra Pramanagattu Uchidi Yavata Amanayasya Kriyarthatvad Anarthakim Adarthana Devini. Again, several Purvavaksha statements. This again, as I mentioned, it is a Purvavaksha within Jaimini system. In this Brahma Sutra Bhashya also you find. In the Brahma Sutra also, against a Purvavaksha, somebody else is asking a clarification, apparently defending Advaita, but they are not Advaita's view. That is done to further emphasize Advaita point. It's a mechanism used in the Bhashya. Idi Kriyaparatvam Shastrasya Pradarsitam. So Kriyaparatvam, Shastra means Veda. So Vedasya Kriyaparatvam. Why? Anarthakim, that is Kriyarthatvad. Amnayasya Kriyarthatvad. Amnaya means Amnayade Upadishyade Dharma Anenadi Amnaya. This is the Mimamsa's definition of Amnaya. Brahmadinam Paramadam Labandha iti Veda. This is the Advaitins interpretation. It reveals Brahma, the reality of Brahman. It Amnayade Upadishyade Dharma Anenadi Amnaya. That is Mimamsa interpretation. So Amnayasya Kriyarthatvad. So Akriyarthanam Anarthakim, that's the meaning. So those Vedic statements which do not contain Kriya, they have got Anarthakyam, means they are without any significance, they have no meaning. Iti Kriyaparatvam Shastrasya Pradarsitam. So Shastrasya Kriyaparatvam Pradarsitam. Ataha Vedantanam Anarthakyam Akriyarthatvad. That is what Bhatta will tell you. Upanishad statements, Vedanta Vakyanas, Anarthakyam. Because Aham Brahmasmi, Vedanta statement, there is no Kriya there. So, Vrittigaras, who came much later after Kumarila Bhatta, they were more conciliatory, they were a little more, they be more consistent. They said, all right, Upasana, Aham Brahmeti Vasida, etc. Bhattas will have nothing of it. For them, Brahman is Asat. So, Vedantanam Anarthakim Akriyarthatvad. Kartra Devadadi Prakashanarthatvena Va Kriya Vidisheshatvam. Kartra Devadadi Prakashanarthatvena. So, maybe some of these statements, Vedanta statements, including Mahavakyas, may reveal either Karta or Devada. Yajamana, Aham Brahmasmi, Aham is Yajamana. So Brahma is Devata, Asmi is Devata Prapti. So you can do that. So if at all you want to give a meaning to Vedanta statements, Bhattas are telling, Katra Devadadi Prakashanarthatvena. The Vedanta Vakyas are Katra Devadadi Prakashanartha, means they reveal, they mention, they somehow reveal the identity of Yajamana or Devata. Devata is Brahma, Yajamana is Aham. If you try to interpret Aham Brahmasmi Mahavakya according to Bhatta school. Then it says, Kriya Vidhi Seshattum. The Anga of Kriya Vidhi Vakyas. Anga means a part. They are artificially linking it to a Kriya Vidhi. Either they should be treated as Vedanta Vakyas, revealing Yajamana, the Karta or Devata, or they should be treated as an Anga, as a secondary part of main Kriya Vidhi. So, Utpatti Vidhi, main Kriya, injection of origination. Then many other statements can be treated subsidiary to the Utpatti Vidhi. So, Kriya Vidhi Seshattum, Upasanadi Kriyantra Vidhanarthatvam va. Or you can say Upasana. Bhattas did not give much importance, but later Vrittikaras, they gave more importance to the Upasana aspect of Vedanta Vakyas. But Bhattas gave a concession, alright. Aham Brahmasmi is totally meaningful, absolute, alright. But you can say Aham reveals Yajamana, Karta. Brahma reveals Devata, and Asmi means Devata Prapti. It means going to Surga and so on, that's all. Or Upasana. Upasana, the Kriyantra, another kind of prayer, Upasana. Kriyantra Vidhanarthatvam va. Nahi Parinishthita Vastu Prativadanam Sambhavati. So Parinishthita Vastu, it means Nishcheruvena Siddham, very Parinishthita. Now, one point is, the word Parinishthita, Bhuta Vastu, Nitya Vastu, Siddha Vastu, all these are used by Vedantins, Bhashyakaras. There, it means the supreme truth which cannot be manufactured, which cannot be Utpadya, Samskarya, Vikarya or Apya, which already existed. It never comes into existence, it always exists. It never ceases to exist because it always exists. It has no change. That is the real implication of Parinishthita as maybe as understood by Vedantins. But Kumarila Bhatta says Parinishthita means something that obvious everyone can see. That is Pratyaksha Siddha. So why do you need a Vedic statement to say something that is so obvious to everyone, that is so visible to everyone, Pratyaksha Siddham? Nahi Parinishthita Vastu Prativadanam Sambhavati. So there's a difference in perception. Pratyakshadi Vishetvad. So Parinishthita Vastunaha. So again Kumarila says Pratyakshadi Vishetvad. So Brahman and all these things are Parinishthita Vastu. You said it's always there. So everything is all visible. So there is no need for Vedas to say something about it. Vedas are always meant to reveal something which beyond empirical, beyond what we can understand otherwise through empirical means. So nahi parinishthita vastu prativadanam sambhavati. Example is mano brahmetyava sida. They say it's a upasana, etc. Statement only. Pratyakshadi Vishetva Parinishthita Vastunaha. Remember the word Pratyaksha as used by Mimamsas. The same reality is seen as as Shadvikara Atita, Ajam, Nityam, Avyam, etc. by Vedantis. So, unless something is to be created or something is there for everyone to see, that's the way Mimamsas understand. They don't understand the absolute reality which is beyond time, space and causation. Shadvikara, Trivikara, Abadita, Avastatraya, Abadita, etc. They don't care to bother about those things. Tatpradivadani cha heya ubadaya rekhide purusartha bhavad. And what's the use of talking about the Brahman in Vedanta? Because in Brahman is already there. So it is not something to be acquired. It is not upadaya. And then so it cannot be got rid of. It's not heya either. So purusartha bhavad. Purusartha means something that is purusha prayatnena arthyaditi, means something that you should be able to attain by your effort. That is purusartha, according to Mimamsakas. They don't even care for a God as you understand it. They don't say, they mean your karmas create a result, you enjoy or suffer. So some of the Mimamsakas, of course, they were not so much against Ishvara, but only udasina for them. Somebody whose presence or interference is not absolutely necessary for you to get the result of your own punya karmas. It comes automatically. Adhishtam is not a gift from any god. It is the result of your own activity. Just as a pot maker makes pot by soil ingredients, like you perform yajna and the adhishta is produced. That's all. It comes of itself. There is no God or anyone's grace involved. That's in Bhatta's view. That's why all these Udayanacharyas, Nyaya Kusumanjali was a great effort to save God, but he used only Nyaya. So, as an ontological class, it collapsed. Shankaracharya accepted Nyaya in his full scope, but brought Shruti. Shruti you cannot defeat, you cannot refute, because Shruti is the text of Mimamsakas also. It is the tree on which they are all standing. So Purusartha Bhavad, because there is no Purusartha that could be achieved by describing, by expounding something which is not to be attained and which cannot be got rid of. That's all. Heya upadeya. Atayeva sa arodhi itevadina manarthakyam ma bhutiti vidhina tvega vakyatvad stutyarthena vidhinam sihu. You already expressed, I explained earlier. Sa arodhi, that story. That is just a statement. So it should be connected to Barhishi Rajatam Nadeyam, the Kriyaviti. So that example is why I mentioned, we explained at the beginning itself to create a background. So yesterday, because there was not light, so I had to stop it. So iti vidhinatu ega vakyatva stutyarthena vidhinam sihu. Iti stavagatvena arthavatum uktam. Stavaga means here studi vakyarthika. Studi vakya. Studi ninda both are the same. As the arthavada, they function the same, they play the same role in making a statement which cannot otherwise be justifiable. You make a statement justifiable either by connecting with to one vidhivakya as stuti or another vidhivakya as ninda. It could be either. Mandranam cha ishetva ityadinam kriya tat sadhana abhidhayitvena karma samavayitvam uktam. Mantranam cha ishetva ityadinam kriya that is there are different dati, vrihi, all these are different. That sadhana, different ingredients, different essential things necessary to perform yaga. Devadodeshena dravyasya tyagaha yajnaha. There's a definition. So you have to perform this yajna. Indiraya swaha idam namama. I'm offering to Indra, it is not mine. So Devadodesena dravyasya tyagaha. Dravya could mean all this. It could mean Avrihi, Deti, or any of these things. Karma samavaitum. So karma samavaitum means connection. Being connected to karma. That is becoming an anga of karma in that sense. For example, this mantra, Ishetva, etc. And also Deti, Vrihi, all these have some connection with karma, the angas of karma, or any statement related to that can be an anga. Samavaitam uttam. Na kojit api vedavakyanam vidisparsam andarena arthavatta drishta upavannava. So this again. Na kojit api vedavakyanam vidisparsam andarena. Without any touch, any connection with Vidhi, Vedavakyas cannot have any arthavatta, any meaningfulness. This is the main doctrine, Bhatta's view. Na kuchidapi Vedavakyanam vidhi samsparsam andarena arthavatta drishta. And upapannava, it cannot be logically tenable, cannot be understood. There is no upapatti. For any of the statements which have no karma involved in it, there is no upapatti for that. Natu parinishthide vastu surube vidhi sambhavati kriyavshetva vidhehi. Parinishthide here means something that is eternal, that is already existing. Eternal for Vedantis. Existing means all these are parinishthide. Pratyaksha siddhas, all you can see around. There's a tree here, there's a mountain here. If Vedas make a statement, no meaning, because no kriya involved. So it should be connected to something. On this mountain, there is something about this mountain. You do go to the top of the mountain, something like that. You have to create artificially some kriya aspect. Kriya parattum should be invoked and be connected to this statement, then it becomes meaningful. So parinishthida vastu. So parinishthida, again this will be understood. Parinishthida could mean, according to Vedanta, it's eternal, well established, not mere creation, is already there. It will be always the Brahman, Nitya vastu, Satya vastu, Bhuda vastu, etc. For them it is ordinary things, Pratyaksha siddha. Because Brahman is not even counted by Kumara Bhatta as anything but taken seriously. Doesn't mean. So, vastu surve vidhi sambhavati, kriya vishetva vidhehe. So, vidhehe kriya vishetva. Every vidhi should have a kriya as its main object. Tasmad karma apekshita kartru surupa devadadi prakasnena kriya vidhisheshattum vedantanam. So, Vedanta Vakyas, Upanishad Vakyas, karma apekshita kartru surupa devadadi prakasnena. So, some kind of revelation, some meaningful statement which is linked to karma, which is connected to karma, and it also reveals certain characteristics, certain aspects of Yajamana, Karta, what are the qualities for a Karta, may be explained there, and or maybe there may be some description, Devada, Vayu Rekshepishta Devada, the statement was here. It's a statement, no kriya there. So it should be connected to another kriya. What's the kriya? That is Kshepishta Devada Svena Bhagatena Ubadhavati Saivainam Bhudingamedi statement. Vayu gets quickly pleased. So if you please him, you get Bhudingamedi. Enam Bhudingamedi means prosperity will come to him. Those who, that's all a statement. For that something should be said about Vayu. Some karma. What is that? Vayavyam Svedam Alabheda. So you have to sacrifice Bhudikama, sacrifice a goat for Vayu. So the Kriya is there, obligatory. So that's why Tasmad Karma Abhekshita Kartru Surupa Devadadi Prakasanena Kriya Vidisheshatvam Vedantanam Atha Prakaranantara Bhayad Na Edat Abhyugamyate Tathavi Savakya Gato Upasanadi Karma Bharattum Athava Atha Prakarana. You see, there's another Prakarana. You see, Upanishad Prakarana context is different. Karmakanda context is different. That's why Prakaranantara, another Prakarana, Bhayat. This is Upanishad Vedanta Vakyas in one context, focusing on Brahman. Karmakanda focuses on Dharma, Yaga, Yajna, is another context. The Prakarana was different. There is a distinction. So out of that, if any problem, don't worry. Tathapi Savakya Gatu Upasanadi Karma Bharattu. In your own Upanishads, there are statements. What are the statements? For example, Mana Brahmeditu, Mana Atme Upasida, etc. There are statements like that. Atma Brahmeditu Upasida, and all the statements are there. Like that, this also an Upasana. You can take an Upasana. So Vakya Gada means, according to them, according to Upanishad themselves, because your context is Upanishad Vedanta Vakyas. There may be many statements related to Upasana. That Upasana can be the meaning of your Vedanta Vakyas, Aham Brahmasmi, Tattwamasi, etc. That's the idea behind. Tasmanna Brahmanaga Shastrayonityum Idi Prapte Uchyate. Now, the point is, therefore, Brahmanaha na Shastrayonityum. Brahman is not the origin of Shastra. Idi Prapte. Having seen this, again remember, it somehow comes very close to Jnana Karma Samuchaya. Bhattas were traditionally Mimamsakas. Between Bhattas and Vedanta, you can see the Jnana Karma Samuchaya. So it comes like that. So again, this is a very, very important point. Now we will come to, I think, the fourth sutra we will take, and then we will take the Bhashyam text. Fourth sutra. I think in your text also the same thing. This is a preface, this is a introduction for the Bhashya, because the Bhashya begins with a refutation. Tu Shabdaha Purvapaksha Vyavrityartha, that is how it begins. So Purvapaksha means the Purvapaksha already mentioned here. And after that, in the main text, in the combined text, Sutra comes, and then the Bhashya continues. Siddhanta begins. That's the structure in many of the traditional books. Now we have Sutra here. Adhikaranam Vedantaha Katrudevadi Para Brahma Para Uta. So Vedanta is Katrudevadi Para Uta Brahma Para. Vedanta Vakyas are Katrudevadi Para, means are they dealing with Karta, Bhokta, Deva, etc., Devada, etc., only Yajnas and Yagas, as Bhattas already mentioned now. Athava Anusthana Upayogitva Kartadi Pratibhadaga. So this is idea. So the first statement is Adhikarana topic, that is Vedantaha Kartru Devadi Para Uta Brahma Para. This is the Adhikarana topic. That is subject being introduced. Vedantaha Vedanta Vakyani Kartru Devadi Para Uta or Athava Brahma Para. These Vedanta Vakyas, are they discussing, are they expounding Karta, Devada, etc.? Or are they expounding this Vedanta. Purvakshin says, Anusthana Upayogitvat Kartadi Pratibadakaha. So Purvakshin view is, it is useful for Anusthana. It is necessary for Anusthana. Anusthana Upayogitvat, because the Ajnadartha Jnapakam Chodhana Lakshana Dharma mentioned here. What we cannot understand from other sources. Karmakanda will tell you how to perform yajnas, yaga. There is no way to find out except Karmakanda sources. Purvamamsa text, Jaimini, Shankara and others. So that's why it has got usefulness as the only source of information regarding Anushtanas, Yajna, Yaga, etc. All the 14 Vedic rituals mean 7 Sapta Havir Yajna, Sapta Soma Yajna. And so Kartadi Pratibadakaha. So Purvakshin's conclusion is the Pratibadanam, the discussion, exposition is on Karta, Devada, etc. So remember this how the Vaiyasika Nyayamala deals with the subject. First Adhyarna, a statement is made. Not for Purvakshin nor Siddhanti. It's a statement impartially. Whether Vedanta Vakyas are discussing Karta, Devada, etc. for Yajnas and Yagas, or are they discussing Brahman? Vedantaha Kartru Devadi Para Uta Brahmavara. So they now Purva Mimamsa give Purva Mimamsa prima facie view in a court or law. First what appears to the surface, it be contradicted by other lawyer proceedings, this idea. What appears to the surface, that is the Purvaksha. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, it is only to strongly establish the Siddhanta. That's the purpose of Purvaksha projection. Anusthana Vayogitvat Kartadi Pratibadakaha. Now here Siddhantin says, Bhinna Prakaranad Linga Shatkarcha Brahma Bodhakaha. So Bhinna Prakaranad. First of all, the context is different. Vedanta Prakaranam itself is different. Secondly, Linga Shatka. I explained yesterday. So again, it takes time, Sruti, Linga, etc. But Linga is most important here because Tattu Samannaya. Samannaya is based on Talpirya Nirnaya. Sadvita Linga, which I already explained many times. Upakrama Bhasamhara, Abhyasa Purva Phalam, Arthavadu Tija Lingam Talpirya Nirnaya. That is the statement. There are some examples, those who are interested. We can see in the context of Chandogya Upanishad Tattwamasi. It is the most quoted example to establish Talpirya Nirnaya. Upakrama Upasamhara. Both begin with reference to Advaita. And so that Ekameva Dvitiyam is beginning. Aitadatmim idam sarvam, that is Upasamhara. So Ekameva Dvitiyam comes the beginning of Chandogya, 6th chapter. It continues, 16 khandas are there. And the overall essence of the entire chapter is more or less based on this Talpirya Nirnaya. So Ekameva Dvitiyam, that is Upakrama, Aidudatmimidam Sarvam is Upasamhara. Tattwamasi is mentioned 9 times, so it is Abhyasa. Apurvata is Acharyavan Purusho Veda. It's an example for Talpirya Nirnaya. Same applies for the entire Brahma Sutras. Samannaya can be established only on the basis of this Talpirya Nirnaya. So Acharyavan Purusho Veda is Apurvata. And Phalam is tasya tavadeva chiram yavad na vimokshi ata sampatsi. This is Brahmajnana phalam. That is phalam. Arthavadam. Yena asudam sudam bhavati, amadam madam bhavati, abhijnadam vijnadam bhavati, etc. And then Upapatti. Yadha saumya ekena mritpindena sarvam mridmayam vijnadam syat vacharampanam vikaro namadeyam mrittiga ityeva satyam. This is the Upapatti. Yadha saumya mritpindena sarvam mridmayam vijnadam syat vacharampanam vikaro namadeyam mrittiga ityeva satyam. Frequently for Tatpari Nirnaya Samannaya, this is frequently taken as an example. It's because it's so well known, that's all. So that's why in the Adhikaranam is mentioned here, Bhinna Pragarana Linga Shatkacha Brahmabodhagaha. These Vedanta Vakyas, they expound Brahman. Sati prayojini anarthahani anushthanatu atrakim. So, because of this experience of Brahmajnanam, all anarthas get completely destroyed. And when all anarthas are completely destroyed, there is no scope for any anusthana. Sati prayojini anarthahani. Anushthanadu atra kim prayojanam, this idea behind. There is no prayojana. Anusthana, according to Mimamsas also, Dukkha, for them also, the cessation of suffering. By creating punya and through punya by adrishta. So you enjoy. So dukkha is gone. All, anartha is gone. But here when you get Brahmajnana, all anarthas are completely gone. So there is no scope or need for any kind of anusthana. So anusthanadu atrakim. Pratibhattim viditsandi. Brahmani avasida uta. Now, Purvapakshi, he doesn't stop there. He says, Atma Brahmityavasida, etc. So Pratibhattim viditsandi Brahmani avasida uta. Shastratvatte vidadharu mananadischa kirtanad. So, you should consider Atma as Brahman. Atma Brahmityavasida, etc. There are such statements called Pratipatti Vidhi. Pratipatti Vidhi is a secondary Vidhi. A Vidhi which is called Gauna status compared to Utpatti Vidhi. So sometimes Pratipatti Vidhi will explain you should get rid of the Soma stocks after Soma Yaga, how to dispose of leftover things. That also there will be some rules and regulations, you should put it that way, this way, all these things. That will be Pratipatti Vidhi. Secondary. So you can say Pratipattim Viditsanti Brahmanya Vasida Uda. So there is no kartrutvam here. Okay, before that, Prabhupada mentioned Brahmanya Vasida Uda. Shastatvatte vidadharo manadesake kirtanad. So there is no scope for kartrutvam in Advaita. So no vidhi. No vidhi. Because vidhi is justified only when there is karma, kriya, etc. There is no kriya kartrutvam in Advaita. Therefore, it has no place. Samsanam, they mentioned here. Shastratva, Shastratva means Samsanam, Prastava. So, it makes a statement, it teaches, it instructs the highest truth. For that very reason, it is Shastra, Shamsana Shastra. Not only that, Maranadischa Kirtana. So, Savana, Maranadi, Dithyas and all these are mentioned here. Of course, this statement That comes from Purvakshi. You have to remember Pratipatti. The point is, all the Brahma Pratipadaka Vedanta Vakyas should be treated as Pratipatti Vithi, secondary Vithi. Subservient is secondary to the main Utpatti Vithi, which contains a Kriya, an injunction. So Pratipatti Vidit Sandhi, Brahmanya Pasiddhakuta. So you can consider this as a Pratipatti Vidhi. That's the idea behind. And again they go further, they say, we also we hear about Sravana, Marana, Nididhyasana, etc. Therefore, Sravana, Marana, Nididhyasana, so the view, Manda view, Nididhyasana, Vyaha, all include Kriya. So, it's an obligation. So naturally, it can be treated as Pratipatti Vithi. All Vedanta Vakyas which expound Brahman can be considered as a Pratipatti Vithi. Now Siddhartha concludes here. Na akartrudate asti shastruttam samsanadavi. This is not correct because in Vedanta there is no kartrutvam, and also Vedanta teaches the highest truth. And not only, an important point is Mananadehi Pura Bodhad. So Mananam, Upasana, all these are also accepted in Vedanta, but that is up to and before realization, before Brahmajnana. After Brahmajnanam there is no Manana or anything. One may do, but there is no need, there is no point in that. So that was stated here also. Actually, when Bhattas made a statement, well, in your own Vedanta Vakyas, there are many statements like Atma Brahmeti Vasida, etc. These are considered to be Vedanta Vakyas. So you can consider all those statements, Aham Brahmasmi also, as upasanas. Bhashyam will reply, well, we understand, all right, we will do upasana, but only Pura Bodha, the Vayasika Nyaya Maharaj says. All upasanas, Sravanam, Maranam, Nidhyasanam, perfectly okay in Vedanta, only up to or before Brahmajnana Aikyam, Brahmajnanam, not before that. Mananadehi Pura Bodha, Brahmani Avasidas Tataha. Only before Brahma Avagati, Sarvanam Maranam Nidhyasanam, not later. Why? Brahmani Avasidas Tataha. All Vedanta Vakyas, they conclude with Brahmajnanam, or they end with Brahmajnanam. Vedantas end or terminate in Brahmajnanam. This is the Vaiyasika Nyayamaya. Now we go to Bhashyam. Now Bhashyam begins Advaita's view, the refutation of Bhattas. Tu shabdaha, tu, so tu samannaya means. Tu shabdaha purvapaksha vyavrutyartha. It is meant to refute or just as a symbolize the beginning of the refutation of Purvapaksha. Tu, na, etc. Purvapaksha vyavrutyartha. Tad Brahma Sarvajnam Sarvashakti Jagadupatti Sthitire Karanam Vedanta Shastrad Eva Avagamyati Katham Samannaya. Samannaya we already saw here. Just one prakarana of Tattwamasi Mahavakya Upadesha is one prakarana. Like that, Samannaya, the Samannaya. So Tad Brahma Sarvajnam Sarvashakti Jagadupatti Sthitire Karanam Vedanta Shastrad Eva Avagamyati. That Brahma is the Karanam of Jagadutpatti Sthiti. That we understand only, that we understand from Vedanta Shastra. Katham Samannayat means by through harmony. Sarveshu hi Vedanteshu Vakyani Tarparyena Edasya Arthasya Pradivagatvena Samanugatani. I mean Ekarupata mentioned here. So Sarveshu hi Vedanteshu Vakyani Tarparyena. I mean the essence, the fundamental theme, the focus. Edasya Arthasya Pradivagatvena Samanugatani. There is Ekarupada. There is mutual harmony with regard to this idea. That is, Vedanta Vakyas explain the truth of Jiva Brahma Aikyam in that sense. Sadeva Swavidam Agre Asit Ekameva Didiyam Atma Va Idamega Agre Asit Tadedat Brahma Apuravanan Anavaram Anantaram Apahyam Mayamatma Brahma Savanubhuhu Brahma Brahmaiva Vedam Amutam Krista Ityadini. So all the explanations here. So all these are very well known. You have studied Chandogya, 6th chapter. That is Sadeva Swavidam Agre Asit. That the beginning, at the beginning, it is this truth, this Sat alone existed. Idam Agre Asit. So, before this Srishti, the Sat alone existed. Ekmeva Didiyam. So all these are explained here. I think the simple things, Sajadiya, Bijadiya, Swagada Veda, refutation, or negation, rejection, is the essence of Ekmeva Didiyam. Sajadiya means, see, suppose you got trees, maybe mango tree or coconut tree, whatever trees, So Sajadiya. They are all trees, but each tree is different from each other tree. Sajadiya Bheda. Vijadiya, I mean two entities. For example, a tree and a rock or water, all the Vijadiya. Sugata Bheda. The same tree, within the same tree there are different things. Fruits, branches, leaves, etc. Of this, Madhvacharya accept all the Vedas, Sajadiya, Vijadiya, Sugata Vedas are completely accepted by Madhvacharya because of Pancha Veda Siddhanta. And Sugata Veda is accepted by Ramanuja. Sajadiya, Vijadiya, Sugata Veda all are rejected by Advaita. Why? Because of Ekam Eva Advitiyam. What's the idea behind? Ekam Eva Advitiyam. Sajadiya, Vijadiya, Sugata Veda Nirasa means. So these are important things to remember. Madhvas accept all the Vedas because for them every jiva is different from every other jiva. Everything in this empirical world, Jagat, is different from every other thing. And then, so every jiva different from each other, every entity different from each other. Then if jiva different from Ishvara, the condition of Madhva Vishnu, and Jagat different from Vishnu. And then Jagat and jivas are different. So Pancha Veda Siddhanta. In Ramanuja system, there is actually Ramanuja system is a refined version of Veda Siddhanta that existed at the time of Bhaskara. Pre-Shankara Vedantins. Veda, both are tried. So the same idea was projected by Bodhayana, which again was the foundation of Ramanuja's philosophy. Means qualified, non-division, qualified, conditional, so to speak. Sat, Achit, Chit, Achit Visishtam. Chit, Achit Visishtam is Advaita only, Vishta Advaita, but it is conditioned, qualified by this distinction, saying Ishvara is Antaryami in everything in this world, in everyone in this world. Particularly, Chit, Jiva is Ishvara is Antaryami. So that is the idea behind. Then Atma va idame agre asid etc. Tadedat Brahma apurvam, anaparam, anantaram, apahyam. All these are important words here. So, there is nothing before the Atma. Atma is there. There is nothing after. There is nothing outside, there is nothing inside. It is Nityam. All these are explained here. The Atma itself is everything. I am Atma Brahma, Sarvanubhut. Here I am Atma, but that is the Aham Spiranam is implied here. I am Atma Brahma. Brahma Sarvanubhut. I mean, that is the same Brahman that experiences everything. Brahmaivedam amritam purastad ityadini naja tadgatanam padanam brahma surupa vishay nischide samannaye avagamyamane arthandrakalpana yukta sudhihani asudakalpana prasankat. So there are two doshas. When it is naja tadgatanam padanam brahma surupa vishay nischide samannaye avagamyamane. In all the Vedanta statements, the meaning and essence, the implication is Brahma Swarupa. It is well established through this Talpaya Nirnaya. Well and so much and so very well understood Avagamyamani, Arthandara Kalpana, bringing another meaning, another interpretation. Na Yukta. Na mentioned here at the beginning. Na Chatadgata. Na Yukta. Sudhihani. Sudhahani means already what is the real meaning that is rejected, and then something which is asudha, which is the opposite of Sudhi Pramana, and that is projected. So asudha kalpana is one dosha, sudhahani is another dosha. Because there is a statement, there is a general principle here in Vedanta, yet paras shabdasya shabdartha. I mean, whatever the word implies in its universally accepted meaning and significance, that should be taken as the meaning of the word, the simple principles of Vedic hermeneutics. The universally accepted meaning, when it's already sensible, that should not be given up. If you give up, it will be sudhahani. And then you project a false or wrong interpretation in its place, it is asudha kalpana. Both doshas will be there if you just interpret Vedanta Vakyas either Sutyarthavada, Nindarthavada, or just it means karma, karta, yajamana, or devada. It will be totally wrong. That is the meaning here. That is a statement. Now again the discussion continues. Naja tesham kartru suruva pradivadana parada avasiyate. Now, naja tesham, so Siddhantin continues here. Naja tesham here means Upanishad Vakyanam. But this again is Bharta Matanuyayinam also sometimes will be interpreted both the same. Nachatesham Kartru Surupa Pradivadana Parada Avasiyati. It is na nischiyate in that sense. Na avasiyati, na nischiyate. These Upanishad statements and their interpretation as Kartru Surupa, means Tvam, Aham, both indicate Yajamana or Karta. Tattvamasi. Tvam is Karta. Aham Brahmasmi. Aham is Karta. Like that. That kind of interpretation, Karta Surupa Pradivadana Parada Avasiyati na nischiyati. And now this statement is made and will be a quotation from Sudhi to substantiate. Tat kena kampasir ityadi kriya kara phala niragarana sudeke. So kriya kara phala niragarana sudhi means a Sudhi statement which openly rejects the there's the idea that the particular statement is linked to Kriya or Phala or instruments for Kriya, Kriya, Kara, Phala, Niragarana. All these are rejected. What is the statement? Tat kena kampasyed. When you reach the jnana avastha, there is no drashta, there is no drishyam, there is no darshanam. Three bodies go away. No dhyada, no dhyaya vastu, and no dhyanam. So no drashta, no drishyam, no darshanam. Tatkena kampasyet vridarnida. Ityadi kriyakara phala niragarna sudehi. This Sudhi Pramanam rejects the idea that this particular these statements like Brahmasmi, Tattwamasi, Mahavak, Vedanta Vakyas, they are linked to a Kriya, an action. Like for example, Agam Brahmasmi, if you make it Itivasida, it becomes Kriya comes. Like that. Tattwamasi, Itivasida. Atmanam Brahma, Itivasida. Like that. If you make it an Upasana, it becomes a Kriya. And then for Kriya or Upasana, you need some instrument, something needed. And then you should have a phalam. Every Kriya is an activity aimed at getting a phalam. It should create the other stuff. According to Mimamsakas and Vrittikaras, Upasanas also create phalam. Phalam is also punya. The point is, Vedantins also accept it. Vedantins say it only produces chitta shuddhi. That's all. All the dhyana, Samvarga Vidya, Bhuma Vidya, Varuni Vidya, all you find everywhere, you find Vidya, Sad Vidya and so on. All the Upanishads, there are so many, almost 182 Vidyas are mentioned here. 33 are very important, of which there are many others which are Upamahavakya called, Atmanam Brahmeti Vasita, Manam Brahmeti Vasita, etc. All these upasanas are perfectly okay. Vedanta say only before realization, before Brahma Jnana, not after. If you do after, then becomes Jnana Dharma Samuchaya. So that's why Bhashyam says, Tat kena kampasyed ityadi kriya kara phala. So kriya and instruments before different things required for kriya and the phala are all rejected by this statement. Nacha parinishthita vastu surupe api pratyakshadi vishayatvam brahmanaha. Nacha parinishthita vastu. So that's why, Mimamsa Bhatta said, if it is parinishthita vastu, then the parinishthita vastu cannot have any Vedic injunction because it pratyaksha siddham. What Mimamsakas mean by parinishthita vastu are things that are visible, which are within the purview, the radar of eyes, ears, all the Panchajnanendriya, Dugindriya, Netrendriya, Sravanendriya, Rasanendriya, all these indriyas, and mind together. You perceive things. That is what is called parinishthita vastu, according to Mimamsakas. But here parinishthita vastu means the eternal reality. Nacha parinishthita vastu surupi api pratyakshadi vishayatvam brahmanaha. So here, according to Vedantins, parinishthita vastu is Brahman. But they are referring to an argument made previously by Mimamsakas, who said that all those things are parinishthita vastu. And what you are talking about? There are trees, etc. So also Tattwamasi, ya Tattvam, ya Tat. It's a statement. No Kriya involved. So that's why there is no absolute rule that parinishthita vastu surupatve api pratyakshadi vishayatvam. There should be those, the parinishthita vastu should be the objects of jnanendriyas, pratyakshadi vishayatvam. Pratyaksha means jnanendriya, netrendriya vishayatvam. In that sense, means in the Uparakshana means all the 5 jnanendriyas are involved, mind is involved. That's the meaning here. Tattwamasi iti. Iti Brahmatma Bhavasi Shastram Andarena Anavagamyamanatvat. Not Tattwamasi Vedanta Vakyas. Now, this cannot be understood as through Pratyaksha. It's not Pratyaksha Vishaya. Mimamsa said, all Vedanta Vakyas, we do not have a Kriya, should be Pratyaksha Vishaya. But Tattwamasi is not Kriya Vakya, but it is not Pratyaksha Vishaya. That's what Bhashyam says. I think we can conclude now. We will have questions. Maybe 10 minutes. If we don't have a question, I shall continue a few more. Okay? Okay? Fine. That's right. Good. So one argument after another of the Mimamsas being taken out and then proper focused and rejected. So keep in mind, for Mimamsakas, Brahmani Siddha Vastu. In the sense, it is Pratyaksha Vishaya, Parinishthita Vastu, like Himalayas. Now, why do we need Shastra Vedas to understand about it? That's the idea behind. Advaita's reply is, Tattwamasi, these are Mahavakyas. Highest experience, Vedanta. Brahmatma Bhava, Jiva Brahma Aikyam. That you cannot understand from many other sources other than Vedanta Vakyas. So, again they will say, Padma, Brahman is the Anga of Dhyana Vidhi. Vedanta didn't say no. For those who have reached Sadhana Srishti Sampatti, for them Sravana Matra Naiva. When they hear, it becomes an experience. But then that Sravana is possible only by reading Sruti Pramana, Vedanta Vakyas. This idea. So you remember, Mimamsas tell you, Vedanta Vakyas are not needed for the fact that I am Brahma, Brahmasmi. Just saying there is a mountain standing there. But Vedantists argue, mountain is standing there, it is Pratyaksha in the sense, it is Jnanendriya Pratyaksha. It is Pratyaksha, it is perceived by the combination of mind and Panchajnanendriyas or any other objects, smell through, Ghanendriya, objects through Tugindriya and so on. But Aham Brahmasmi, Tattwamasi, all these statements which are all dealing with Parinishthita Vastu, eternal realities, fundamental truths of our own identity, that we won't get from any source other than Shastras, Vedantas. That's the idea behind. And again, some other objections are taken up. Yattu heya upadeya rahitatvad upadesha anarthakyam iti na esha dosha. Heya upadeya shunya brahmatmada avagamat eva sarva klesha prahanat purushartha siddhehi. So another argument for Mimamsas was this. There is this Brahmajnanam is neither heya nor upadeya. It's something that you can get. Why? Because you are already Brahman. And then you cannot give it up because that's your eternal nature. So there is nothing to do about it. So there is no Purusha Prayatna involved. And without Purusha Prayatna, then how can be Purushartha? Purushena Arthideti Purushartha. So that's why they argue the Purushartha, this Brahmajnanam will not give Purushartha. Bhashyam says no. Brahman is our true nature. So it cannot be given up. It is not something to be attained or obtained. It is not upadya, vigarya, samskarya, apya, etc. So, Heyopadeya Kalpana isn't relevant here at all. Because our true nature, it cannot be given up. It's our true nature, so it need not be attained. That's the idea behind. Yattu Heyopadeya Rekhatva Buddhisanat Kimiti. That's your argument. That there is this Brahmajnanam is neither Heya nor Vadeya, therefore there is no meaning for this Upadesha. So this is Naishadoshaha. Heyopadeya Shunya Brahmatmadavagamat Eva Sarva Klesha Prahanat Purusartha Siddhehi. So from that from that state, from that knowledge, we can we are completely able to destroy all kleshas, Sarva Klesha Prahanat. That's the ultimate Purusartha moksha. That kind of moksha is not Purusartha according to Mimamsakas, this idea behind. So very often, the common example is a golden chain that you had tied on your neck, which you forgot about, and then finally somebody remind you, well, the golden ornament that you are looking for is actually on your own neck. Somebody had to tell you it's yourself. Dasamastomasi is the same thing. So we will get Purusartha Siddhi by this Brahmatmadavagama, means understanding, realization that we are Brahman, our Atman is Brahman, Jiva Brahmaikyam. Devadadi Pradivadanasya tu Suvakyagatu Vasanarthatve api nagaschi virodha. Oh, we had no problem there. You said Suvakyagatu Vasana means in your own Vedanta Vakyas you find many statements which are all Upasana Vakyas. So like that, Aham Brahmasmi Tattwamasi also take as an Upasana Vakya. That's the Mimamsaka's view, Purvakshan's view. So Bhashyakara says, well, we have no problem in agreeing with you. So Vakyagata Upasanarthatve api nagasit virodha Brahma Dhyana Vidhi. But the difference is, Mimamsakas will tell you, it is a vidhi, it is an anga of another vidhi, or the statement itself is concocted or reoriented as a vidhi. Aham Brahmasmi iti upasana. So upasana here, there are different kinds of upasana. Asya, Adhyasarupam, Sambadrupam, we will discuss in course of time. In certain upasanas, suppose you are a small jiva, and you do upasana, you are Brahman. So something much bigger than the reality is projected. This is their understanding of upasana. You can see a little bit of that, a trace of that tradition you find in many of the modern puja vidhis, mantras are there. You give a small something and you do sankalpa, do something bigger and do offering. So you get the result of the aropya, what you projected. Give one coin and you say, this mantras will tell you, you are projecting this niti to you. So you do sankalpa, meditation. And the person who performs the ritual will get the benefit of offering niti itself. So the aropya, what is being superimposed, will produce far more result. This is an agreed, a traditional way of ritual you find. It is a relic of, a hangover of these ancient practices. Pratikupasana, there are different kinds of upasanas out there. Some upasanas you project yourself in the bigger entities, and that will help you in spiritual life. Sambat Rupa Upasana, it's not relevant here. So Bhashyakara says, we have no problem, we certainly accept this upasana, but then the point is, Savakyagata Upasanarthatve abhina kasya virodha natu tatha brahmanaha upasana vidisheshuttam sambhavati. But it is not an anga, not a shesha, not shesha, but sheshattum. It is not a shesha, it is not an anga, it is not a part, It is not a minor ingredient of main upasana vidhi. And of course, we already saw in the Adhikarana, in the Vaiyasika Nyaya, that is, upasanas are accepted, but only up to Jiva Brahmaikyam, not afterwards. If afterwards you continue upasana, it becomes Jnana Karma Samuchayavada. The opposite of Advaita, that is Bhakti Pramajana others. So Brahman is Nitya, therefore there is no Heya or Upadeya here. Ekatve Heyopadeya Shunyataya Kriyakaragandhi Dvaita Vijnana Upamaddopapratehi. So what happens, Ekatve, this experience, Jiva Brahmaikyam, there is no Heya or Upadeya. No Kriya, Karaga, Dvaita Vijnana. All these are Upamatha. I mean, they completely get destroyed. Dvaita goes through the process of Upashyama. Upashyama means self-disappearance. It doesn't go away, it just ceases to exist. In that sense, this idea behind. So when you see Rajju, what happens is Sarpa Buddhi itself gets self-destroyed or self-dissolved. So what happens in Dvaita, Kriya, Karaga, Dvaita Vijnana, all these get completely self-dissolved when you ekatve, when you experience this Jiva Brahmaikyam Anubhuti. Nahi ekatva vijnanena unmathidasya Dvaita Vijnanasya punasambhava asti. Yena upasana vidhi seshatvam brahmana upapadyeta. Another important point is made. When you get this Kriya Karga Dvaita Vijnana Upashama, what happens is, when you experience Ekatva, what happens is, they get completely destroyed and they don't re-emerge again. That's the idea behind. Because punasambhavaga nasti, that's the idea behind. Bhasma Satkurudi Arjuna. Nahi ekatva vijnanena unmathidasya, when it is completely destroyed. Dvaita vijnanasya. Dvaita buddhi gets completely destroyed through upashama. You see, if you destroy, it may come back. Upashama means it by itself gets self-dissolved. It cannot come back. That's an important point. The upashama word is very important here. Upamaddopapratehi nahi ekatva vijnanena unmathidasya dvaita vijnanasya punasambhavaga asti. Punasambhava nasti, that's the idea. Again, the Dvaita Buddhi will not emerge. Why? Because self-dissolved. Yena upasana vidhi seshatvam brahmanaha prapadyeta. So, if they could re-emerge, Dvaita Buddhi, Dvaita Vijnana, Kriyakaraka Buddhi, could re-emerge after this Ekatva Anubhuti, then we can understand, well, it can have upasana vidhi seshatvam. It can be considered to be a sesha, a part, anga of upasana vidhi. But here, it doesn't come back again. Dvaita Buddhi doesn't come back again, therefore it is not upasana vidhi sesha. Okay, we'll conclude. We'll now, and then we'll conclude this evening. Okay. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Brahma